Hi everyone, it's Jan from Jan Plans Things, and welcome to my Plan With Me video for week 5 of August. August seems to be a pretty long month, but that's okay because it means I've gotten one extra week of my star and sky theme. So I wanted to do something a little bit different this week. First off, I did the pencil drawing beforehand so you guys didn't have to sit through and watch me do that, but I thought this would be just a little bit quicker so I could slow down parts of the other video. And basically I wanted to try painting in more of like a traditional wet on wet technique with the watercolor, but trying to emulate that in the LT. But the thing is, you can't paint like that on the LT, otherwise the paper would buckle so much. So I was just trying to use a similar technique to get a similar effect, but on the thinner paper. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm creating like a pale orange wash. And then what I'll do with that is I'll quickly, I'll put a little bit of water on the page first, and then I'll go through and then just put the water on and layer it on to get that really nice, like that watercolory running effect. The first minute of the video showed me just using the Pentel pocket brush pen to do just the little bit of line work underneath the fox, because I wanted the top edge of the fox to be quite blurry. I didn't want it to be like a solid edge. I've only done the bottom lines of that, and then also the stars in the Sakura Micron pen. So as you can see here, I'm just kind of like gently patting on some color, and it is already, like, even with this small amount of water, it's already causing the paper to buckle a little bit. So I'm going through again and just picking up any excess splodges that I see with my brush and just moving it around so that when it dries it's not so apparent. So I've used like a red mixed with the quinacridone gold to create that rich orange color. I'm using Daniel Smith watercolors today, and then just slowly layering on some darker colors. So I did the lighter colors first and then move that all the way up the page, and now I'm going through and just adding a few more reds to make the picture richer, and then the browns for the feet. And what I'm doing now is just adding a little bit of water onto it. By adding the water to it up the page, it means that I can kind of dilute the color and create that kind of like wet look that you get from watercolors. But if you did that on the LT directly, I reckon that would buckle the paper too much and it'd be a little bit too difficult to control. So this is kind of like the way I've gone about it to get around the limitations of the paper. And I've noticed that because in the last week I've tried to paint on thicker papers, that I'm so used to painting on the LT that I've actually altered my technique completely. I kind of forgotten how to paint on watercolor paper, so it's been a bit of an experience for me just to remember how to do that again. So this is now, I've just mixed a much deeper palette this time, and I've used, so that's like almost dipping directly into the pan, so there's very little water in this just to get the colors to be as strong as possible. So I'm layering this onto the wash that I did previously, and on any of the edges I might just dip my brush in the water and then just soften the edge a little bit to try and get that similar like bleed through and gradient almost effect from the fox, so that it kind of looks like there's the solid body at the bottom and then it fades off onto the top of the page. So it's been a bit of an experiment this week to try and get that technique working, and it's sort of okay, but I feel like I can work on it a little bit more. But I did learn a lot trying to do it in this method, so I'm just going back through now and just darkening the areas. I feel like I might have made the tail a little bit long, so I try to fix that a little bit later on. I've kind of based this painting on something I saw by Kellogg's Hoops. I'll link the name down below. He's probably one of the best watercolorists on YouTube, so if you have a chance, just watch his tutorials. They're absolutely fantastic and really wonderful to see his drawings come to life. So I'm just going through now and just adding the final little details on the fox, and just making the base of the body where the legs are a little bit more defined. And I'm just dipping the brush directly into the pan. I'm just doing the little details with the brush. Like I wanted to have this like kind of geometric shapes breaking off the back of the fox to kind of make it look like he was a little bit more of a spectral being. And I'm adding a little bit of brown there to show like the end of the the end of the fox, like the tip of the tail, which is a little bit darker, and just going through and adding those little details. And the brush I'm using now is this 0 size Winsor Newton, and I only just realized last week that Winsor Newton doesn't have a D in it, so I've been misspelling it the entire time. So if any of you guys have googled it and I've given you the wrong name, I'm really sorry. I only just realized that. So I'm just using that brush to get the little details, and I'm finding that because I've been painting so much over the past month, I've really improved with my brush control, so I can draw these shapes a bit more. I'm also dotting in at the moment a few little circles so I can do the constellations to tie this drawing in to the previous weeks, because I have it is a little bit different, but I did want to try a slightly different style, so I wasn't painting so many clouds this week. It is pretty amazing how much you feel that you've even improved over the month. So like, I've realized that Inktober is coming up, not next month but the month following, and I'm considering doing it. As anyone else considering doing Inktober? I feel like it would really help with me improving my drawing skills, but I'm worried about the time commitment involved. So I will try and give it a go though. So these are the Finetec paints. I think recently they might have rebranded to Coliro. I'll write both of it in the description, but you can still, the palettes still look exactly the same, and I really do like this gold. It's nice and bright. I recently did a painting on watercolor paper using these paints, and I found that they, depending on the paper, they look shinier or a little bit duller. And on watercolor paper, these paints are a bit duller, but on the LT, it's just kind of perfect for it, and it almost looks like gold foiling. So it might not be the same on all papers. That's just something to consider if you're using these paints on a different journal and it's not looking the same as how I use it, because I think it's just the fact that the paper of the LT is really, really smooth. And even though this is the last week of my star theme, star sky theme, I still want to try and incorporate using these metallics into my journal in the future, because I just kind of really love flicking to the page and having those little metallic accents through it. It makes me really happy. So at the moment, I've had a lot of requests to do some older spreads again, so I might revisit those in the next month, but I'm still a little bit on the fence on the theme. At the moment, what you can see me using, I've picked up a gouache, and that's kind of like a opaque watercolor. This one's by Winsor Newton, and I'm just using that to paint in a little constellation detail on the fox. And so when you're painting with gouache or any other watercolor for that matter, I would try and wet the brush a little bit and then just test the strokes, because if you try and paint directly from the tube, the paint might clump on the brush and you won't be able to get as a thin line as you were hoping. So that's just something to consider while you're painting as well. So it's not so much a problem with the watercolors, because the watercolor is quite thin already, so you can draw really thin lines. But if you're using a thicker medium like acrylic or gouache, you should just make sure that the paint has been thinned out enough so that you can draw the thinner line. And what I'm doing now is I'm using the grey to draw in a few of the splotches for the dates. I kind of just put them wherever because I kind of like it a little bit free flowing, but I do like having 3 on either side. At this point, I kind of realized that the drawing didn't look very grounded, like it looked a little bit incomplete, but so I've gone through first and outlined the stars again with the Sakura Micron pen, because the gold paint is so opaque that it kind of makes the lines disappear. So I just wanted those stars to pop a little bit more. And then I'm just going through and just adding a few little details on the fox. And at this point, I still wasn't 100% happy with it. So because I quite like the grey that I had mixed with the fox, I'm going through at the moment and then just doing the same technique as I had done previously to create like a little shadow around it to just ground the image a little bit more. And I found that that really helped in making it look a little bit more complete compared to before, and I felt like everything was kind of just floating on the page and it didn't really look like one overall composition. And I really can't believe it, because just yesterday I managed to hit 50,000 followers on my Instagram, and I'm over the moon with all the support that you guys have been giving me. So I'm partnering with Bonbugu Australia to create a really awesome 50k giveaway for you guys, so keep an eye out on my Instagram for that. I'll be announcing it sometime next week. At the moment I still have the Mossery 40k giveaway for the threadless notebook, so you can access that the giveaways via the link that I'll provide in the description. So this is the Sakura jelly roll pen, and I'm just going through and using that to write the letters and just going over some of the gouache lines because they had sunk into the paper a little bit, and the jelly roll kind of just pops a little bit more. And at this point I'm just like doing a little bit, I can't stop touching because I wasn't 100% sure on it yet, but sometimes it's better just to stop. And at this moment I just wanted to kind of define where the body of the fox was compared to the tail of the fox. And once again I'm just rotating the page because I can't seem to do calligraphy when the page is perpendicular to myself. I always seem to write better on a slant. So I'm using the Tombow Fudenosuke hard tip pen for this. I'm trying a little bit more of a modern calligraphy look this time with the dropping baseline. And the title's a little bit bigger than what I'm used to, but I find that it looks okay on this page. I kind of liked how this one turned out. And yeah, that's it. So that's my spread for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed painting it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. There'll be a review video for the Archer and Olive notebooks coming up, and yeah, thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, bye!